inflation is at a record high, rising again to reach 17.1% in the 4 weeks to the 19th of February. 1/4 of people say they're struggling financially versus 1 in 5 this time last year. That is why people are going to food banks. And there's a social cost to this. There's a physical and a mental health cost to this, and there's an economic cost to this, as food inflation is one of the largest contributing factors to general inflation. Basic foodstuffs such as bread and milk have soared in price, with the Joseph Rowntree Foundation showing that more than 7 million households across the UK are going without essentials, with 13% admitting they had skipped meals. Now, how can we hear these statistics and not be ashamed? The Trussell Trust reports that food bank use is soaring as the cost of living in general bites into household. Food bank users tend to be those who are destitute, disabled or in single-parent households. Those on universal credit are not well off, although they do often have to contend with the 5-week wait for their benefit and then put in the ludicrous position where they have to pay back from their universal credit benefit when they actually receive it. So I've never understood, Mr Chair, why a loan would never be given by a bank to those on universal credit, but the state thinks that these people on universal credit are able to pay back from the pittance they receive from the government. I've never understood it, and all it does is drive people further and further into poverty, which drives them further and further away from work. Who does that benefit? Our welfare state is simply not doing enough to support people. Now, the honourable gentleman from Ashfield who brought this debate forward talked about how he had spoken to people, he'd met with people in poverty. Well, maybe he has noticed that poverty bleeds into every aspect of your life. Material poverty breeds poverty of self-esteem. It breeds poverty of your worldview, your world horizon. It breeds poverty of ambition, and it breeds poverty in health, and it breeds poverty in life outcomes. He has seen these things, I suppose, Mr Chair. I have lived these things. He said, you actually said, I have seen these people. Well, Mr Chair, I was those people, and I can tell you they're not living high in the hog. And it's ludicrous to say so. And I would just gently say to the honourable gentleman that he wants to speak to people who are poor, but they wouldn't come and speak to him. It's actually staggeringly insensitive for an MP who's on a pretty good wage, Mr Chair, by anybody's measures, thinks that they should be able to lecture people who are living and struggling on universal credit or in low pay. I mean, you know, I wouldn't take kindly to that, Mr Chair, and I don't know many people who would, but being told by somebody who's well off what they're doing wrong as they struggle to survive and feed their families every day. You know, I'm a great fan of the novels of Charles Dickens, and, you know, as I was sitting listening to the honourable gentleman, for all the world, he reminded me of Mr Scrooge without the compassion. So if you add into the difficulties that we're discussing today and the economic damage of Brexit, it is not good enough. It is not good enough to tell people who are struggling that they need to buck up, that they need to work more shifts, and they need to try harder, and they need to buy containers to batch cook. It simply is not good enough. It's complacent, it's staggeringly insensitive, and I hope when the Minister gets to his feet and offers us perhaps a more measured approach to this, I hope he will tell us what more he can do to help families and households who are struggling. And I know that he's going to tell us what's already been done, but I think he would appreciate that what's already been done is not enough when we have children going hungry, we have families relying on food banks, and there is no end to this pain in sight, because the soaring food inflation we have seen is not expected to ease any time soon.